Mad Max Fury Road is one of the greatest action movies of all time, so Furiosa had a lot to live up to. Not that anyone expected it to be on par with the 2015 masterpiece, but within striking range would be good enough. So how does Furiosa compare? Well, I think this is a good movie, with botched visual effects that don't stand toe-to-toe with its predecessor. For those who love Mad Max Fury Road, there is some enjoyment to be found in the prequel. Let's talk about that first. Real quick, if you haven't done so already, make sure you give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Now, this positive is a given. Regardless, it's still great seeing a younger Furiosa on screen, as well as characters such as Immortan Joe, his sons, and so on and so forth. I'm never going to complain seeing those characters again. They're part of what made Fury Road a wild ride from start to finish. It's just nice seeing them here. I truly thought during the 9 years between this and Fury Road, we'd never see them again. Here we are though, returning to this universe with the same characters and places we know. But that doesn't mean we aren't introduced to anything new either. In fact, I would have to say the best elements of Furiosa are the world building and our new villain Dementus, played by Chris Hemsworth, and Furiosa's revenge story against him. If Furiosa does anything better than Fury Road as a film, it's absolutely these two elements. Many of the places they discuss in Fury Road, we see in Furiosa, such as the Green Place, Gastown, etc., plus various other undiscussed areas. Meanwhile, Fury Road mostly takes place at the Citadel and in the desert, with little room to introduce other fortresses. But given the 2.5 hours, Furiosa wastes no time going from location to location, which should please many fans curious about the rest of this world. Possibly the biggest talking point of Furiosa, though, is Chris Hemsworth's Dementus. Furiosa develops a lot of beef with him throughout the film, and he is no doubt the big baddie this time around. I don't think I like Dementus more than Immortan Joe. He's a little too campy, but when his story intertwines with Furiosa, the film becomes much more character-driven in comparison to its predecessor. We actually learn quite a lot about Furiosa and how she became the woman she is by Fury Road. I'm sure most people who love Fury Road will at the very least connect to the story. In Furiosa, we understand why the Green Place was so special to her. So now, this scene in Fury Road makes even more sense when we see the devastation on her face. Beyond those elements, Furiosa's score returns with the Fury Road style beats, which I loved hearing in theaters. Sound-wise, everything from the explosions to the vehicle engines and gunfire sounded realistic, as if I was on location with our characters. And obviously, I was entertained when anything action-wise was going down on screen, notably in the opening scene. But, as mentioned, I do have one big problem with Furiosa's action scenes. Unfortunately, I think mediocre visual effects are what hold this film back from being as good as Fury Road. When you think of that film, what stands out to you the most? It's the cinematography and visual effects, of course. In 2015, George Miller and company took the world by storm with their incredible set pieces captured through a camera lens. From there, the visual effects team seamlessly composited each shot, putting together a beautiful action spectacle for the big screen. Not to say there isn't any visual beauty in Furiosa, there is still a good amount of breathtaking cinematography. After all, this is a George Miller Mad Max film. But when I compare Furiosa's set pieces side by side with Fury Road's, they are undoubtedly a step down. In some shots, the green screen is noticeable, and in other shots, you can clearly tell when CGI is used. I'm not sure what exactly caused such issues to arise. I heard rumblings that Australia's weather didn't cooperate, so sometimes they had to shoot on a stage instead. Therefore, I can understand why it looks pretty bad and noticeable at times, if that was the case. Either way, it's disappointing we went from a masterclass action-wise in Fury Road to what Furiosa offers. I mean, look at this scene for instance. The sand and background, as well as the vehicles and even character figures, look computer generated. I feared this would be the case based on the trailers, and sadly my fears became reality. Now, some people have said scenes like this in the movie didn't bother them, and trust me, I wish I could be of the same mindset. But as someone who watches a ton of movies, if your action film doesn't look nearly flawless from a visual standpoint, and you have a blockbuster-sized budget, I can't simply ignore that. It'd be fine if the budget was under $50 million, but Furiosa's budget was over $160 $50 million. There's no reason for this film's action sequences to look so much worse than Fury Road's, especially when you factor in Fury Road being 9 years older. To this day, that film looks stunning, and it pains me to say a movie 9 years younger doesn't look as good. So that's my biggest issue with the movie. I came for the mind-blowing action sequences, and while I was entertained, I definitely got distracted when the visual effects weren't smoothly composited. I do have a few other random flaws with the film though I'd like to point out. So like I said, this movie runs at 2.5 hours, and for whatever reason, they don't always focus on the most interesting aspects of Furiosa's story. For example, one story they skip over entirely is her development as protector of the war rig. She goes from a fighter with raw skills to a warrior in a matter of one scene. The movie chooses to flash forward and skip over all of that, even ignoring the growth of her relationship between herself and her teacher. But I would have rather seen her develop as a fighter and get more time with Anya Taylor-Joy's version of the character, as opposed to spending the first hour with a younger Furiosa. Finally, having Dementis as the reason for Furiosa's lifelong inner torment takes away from this line in Fury Road.
Remember me?
To me, that line signified Immortan Joe as the one responsible for causing all of Furiosa's pain and suffering, not Dementis. I get it would be repetitive having Immortan Joe as your main villain here again, but in that case, why have a prequel Furiosa movie? By having Dementis as Furiosa's true demon, the effect of killing Joe at the end of Fury Road no longer hits as hard, so I think it would have been more impactful to have Joe as the main villain again, especially if we're talking continuity between Fury Road and Furiosa. If they didn't want Joe as the bad guy for a second straight film, why not make a Fury Road sequel instead? After the box office disaster thus far, maybe that would have been a better idea. As mentioned from start to finish, this is a good movie. For some people, it's possibly the best movie of 2024 so far. One thing I think we can all agree about though is that this film came out several years too late. The hype following Fury Road has died down significantly, and reasonably so. A 9-year gap will do that, so George Miller certainly couldn't expect those who are impatient to care about a Mad Max prequel when all the anticipation is ice cold. Plus, Max ain't even part of this film. Nonetheless, Furiosa still has a lot of good, and I'm happy we returned to this world with director George Miller, despite a 9-year gap. If he ever gets a chance to make another one, I hope he gives us a Fury Road sequel. That would be amazing. Anyway, what are your thoughts on Furiosa? Do you think it comes anywhere close to the greatness of Fury Road? If not, what are your issues with it? Let me know in the comments. And as always, thank you all so much for watching this review. Again, make sure you like this video and subscribe to the channel. Look out for more reviews and video essays next week. I'll catch you then.